What is up? Welcome in to the Early Edge NFL Friday Prop Show Spectacular. I'm your host, Allan Bell. We got a fantastic show lined up for you today. But before we get to all that, I'll tell you what, the most important and the reason you're all here, Early Edge merch, 20% off. No, I'm just kidding. You're here for everybody. But we are having a sale, 20% off all Early Edge merch for the rest of the year. We're offering that. Use the link in the description of both the audio or video versions of this podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, use the QR code right there to take you directly to the storefront. At checkout, use the code EARLYEDGE20. That's EARLYEDGE20. Now, before we look forward, we must look back. Let's take a look at the picks from last week. Solid. All right, across the board, man. PropStarz, well done on that. Uncle Dave, look, this was me being in the chat. I think I got to my man here, but you know what? He's been crushing it all season long. And Sia Nejad coming through on Jerry Jeudy and Rashad Penny. Nice job. And Tony Pollard. We're going to talk about this in a minute. Dallas has some issues. I want to see way more Tony Pollard. But you know what? Let's bring in the stars of the show. Let's look at these guys here. And first off, all right, Uncle Dave. It's a pleasure to see you as always, sir. How we doing?
We're doing pretty bad, AB. It's embarrassing how off I was. I mean, just pathetic, really. I think it's the only word to describe it. I just want to quickly review it. Last week, Geno Smith under 22.5 completions, so way off. He had 23. J.D. McKissick over 3.5 catches. I was not even in the ballpark. He had 3 receptions, all coming in the second half. Marcus Mariota, longest pass under 36.5 yards. 57 minutes into the game, he completes a pass on a catch and run, preposterous pass, went 42 yards. I am ashamed at how off I was last week. The 1-4 record could have been 0-5. That's how bad it was. But let's try and get after it this week and do a better job.
Oh, hey, no doubt. I mean, all the faith of the world. And let me also say this. 3 weeks ago on one of these shows, I went 0-11 in one day. So nobody's going to do any worse than that. So let me assure you, feel positive, feel good. We're going to let that thing rip. I also will say it is very difficult to go 0-11. There should be some sort of like trophy or something, some sort of recognition, because I don't know if I can do that again.
Like one of those toilet bowl trophies. That might be something that we can work up. You didn't catch the sarcasm there with what I was saying?
I caught it a little bit. Yeah, okay. Absolutely. I caught it. Yeah. Right. You know, I just wanted to make everybody else, just feel worse for tailing me, really, is what I wanted to do. All right, Sia Nejad. Looking sharp as always, sir. How we doing?
Appreciate it. I'm doing badly too, just like Dave, but it's because I caught some sort of flu yesterday and I'm operating at like 70%, so I'm okay. But listen, if Michael Jordan can have his flu game, if Kobe Bryant can play in the finals with a broken finger, if Miss Teen South Carolina can compete back in 2007 with no understanding of basic sentence structure, such as therefore the Iraq, I can take those icons and apply it to today and show up and give out some props.
I wonder what well, first off, I agree. And the flu that you had is called the Denver Broncos offense, specifically in the red zone. But no, I wonder what that Miss Teen South Carolina is doing now, such as, therefore, the Pacific Ocean. Dude, she was all over the board there.
Most people don't have maps. Most people don't have maps.
That's right. I forgot about Iraq. Most people don't have maps. PropStarz, how we doing, sir?
AB, we're good. Coming off a 4-1 week. Also highlighted by Austin Ekeler scoring not 1, not 2, but 3 touchdowns. I did recommend everybody sprinkle on that. I sprinkled that. Was very elated to see a lot of tickets with people sprinkling 3 touchdowns for Austin Ekeler. Going to be hard to outdo that this week, but I think we're going to bounce back. I know Uncle Dave's going to bounce back, and I'm excited for Sia's MJ flu game today.
There we go. Right, dude. I mean, you nailed it. 3 touchdowns. You drilled it right on the button, man. That was well done. All right, let's not waste any more time. Let's get into the games. So we've got a London game this weekend here. We got the Giants and the Packers. Packers, 8-point favorite, total of 41. Now, the last 7 games in London, when you've had a team that is a touchdown favorite or more, 6-1 against the spread. But we're not talking spread. We're talking props. At PropStarz, you've got a play on this one with Saquon Barkley. What you got?
Yeah, I rarely go back to the well with props, but I had to on this one. I can't believe we're getting a lower number than we got last week. That's Saquon Barkley over 14.5 yards, longest rush. If you recall, this was 16.5 last week. It was one of my favorite plays. I gave it out via article, via stream. Saquon's eclipsed this in all 4 games this season. The Giants are facing the Packers defense. They are nearly as big as a run funnel as the Bears, who the Giants faced last week. Also, the Packers are not maximizing play volume on offense at all. In my opinion, this is going to allow for the Giants to really implement a run-heavy strategy on Sunday. Also, the Packers' run defense, they're 27th in EPA against the rush, 31st in rush success percentage, 30th in run grade. So in addition to being a run funnel, they are not good versus the run at all. Saquon, he looks incredible, as good as he's ever looked in his career. The Giants' offense is literally built around his breakaway running style as well. Barkley, he's second to Nick Chubb in NFL's next generation rush yards over expected this season, ranks 5th in rush yards over expected per attempt. He's delivering just a ton of long runs, super efficient on a big workload. The guy has been phenomenal. He also leads all running backs with an 88% snap share as well. His rushing attempts line is set at 18.5, and it's juiced to the over. So he's a great shot to handle around 20 carries. And if he gets 20 carries against this defense, he's going to snap off a run for over 15 yards for sure, in my opinion.
Whoa, go with a for sure. Lock that one in. All right. Now, Dave, your son's running wild over here. What do you think about this play? What do you think about this game as a whole?
He's my nephew, not my son.
Sorry. Yeah, nephew. Sorry. Let me get the familiars correct.
It's the Packers are not allowing a low yard per carry average. So there's certainly something there. And you know that the Giants are going to have to lean on Saquon Barkley. Asking him to get a 15-yard run doesn't seem like that much. He should be able to come through. So I like exactly how he's feeling on this one.
There we go.
He being little Geppetto over there.
His rap album is coming out. It's going to be fire. All right. Sia, same question back at you, man. Like, just thoughts on the game, in regards to the Giants and their quarterback situation, what that looks like. Their offense could be one-dimensional, could be half-dimensional, right? And the Packers, they can get after the quarterback. The Giants, pretty much except for the left tackle position, has been just a turnstile. Just your thoughts on the game. Any bets that you looked at, didn't fully go through, but you thought about hard? Just your thoughts in general.
Yeah, in this game, there wasn't any bets I actually looked at. I mean, I think Daniel Jones is going to play, which is interesting. But as far as the receiver core, I mean, I just don't know what to expect. And so I agree with Alex that this is going to be obviously a Saquon-centric football game. On the other side of the ball, I do think A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones are going to have some success. But as far as like the total or, the 8 points, I'm not on this. My lean would be to the Packers, actually, coming off a very substandard game. I think they're going to be locked in this game, but not a game I'm looking at to bet on.
Yeah, I'm with you on there, man. Like, I'm fascinated to see, because we've heard, Aaron Rodgers, obviously, and, just not distrust, but just unhappiness with the Packers offense as a whole. And, his passing game really is at the line of scrimmage or behind it, to be completely honest with you. So I'm fascinated to see that game. All right, getting into the early slate here. Props coming back at you, buddy. We've got the Titans, a 2-point favorite at the Washington Commanders, a total of 43. Interesting nuggets on this game. You look at the Tennessee Titans, they've only scored 1 touchdown in the second half of games this season, but they've scored a touchdown on their opening drive in every single game this season. They look like they're kind of getting things turned around a little bit. You're going on the opposite side, Washington's offense. Terry McLaurin over 56.5 receiving yards. Break it down, man.
Yeah, I like Terry McLaurin in this matchup. He's had a bit of a slow start to the season. He's still managed to eclipse this line in in 3 of his 4 games played. He's coming off a disappointing game against the Cowboys, where he finished with only 2 receptions for 15 yards. The entire Commanders' offense struggled against an elite Cowboys defense. I think this Cowboys defense is arguably the best defense in the NFL. But McLaurin and company, they have a much better matchup against the Titans on Sunday. Also, this Commanders' receiving group is banged up. Jahan Dotson has been ruled out. Curtis Samuel's questionable. He is expected to play. And also tight end Logan Thomas is also questionable, banged up, may not play as well. So I think the target distribution is going to be further condensed towards Terry in what is a very favorable matchup. Titans, they're 24th in passing DVOA. They've surrendered the 4th most yards to opposing wide receivers this season. Also, if we're looking at Carson Wentz, yes, he really struggled the last 2 weeks, but that was against the Eagles and the Cowboys. In my opinion, 2 of the best defenses in the NFL. I think he's going to fare a lot better versus this Titans team. I was actually surprised to see this number open in the mid 50s. I think this might be up to like 63.5, 64.5 come kickoff.
There we go. And Dave, no official picks, props on this game, but just your thoughts in general. Do you see any players that could have a breakout game, or on the opposite side, players that we think could be big, really not a factor at all?
Which game is this that we're talking about?
Titans Commanders.
I'm a little nervous about Derrick Henry. I almost went with an under Derrick Henry prop of 86.5 rushing yards because Washington's run defense has been terrific. And I know the Commanders have been dragged through the mud the last 2 weeks. Their offense has been a mess. I'm curious if Brian Robinson plays. That's their rookie running back. You read about him in the news or heard about it online. He got carjacked, got shot. He's going to be back for this game theoretically. If he is, I think he changes the tenor of the offense. And I think the Commanders kind of bounce back a little bit against the Titans. It's a winnable game for them, which makes me a little bit nervous about Derrick Henry finding 100 yards. But I do think that I think he'll score. I think he'll be okay for fantasy. But it wouldn't surprise me if the Commanders ended up winning this game.
Yeah, you know what? I completely agree with you. And yeah, Sia, go ahead. What do you got?
No, I mean, I just wanted to reflect what Dave just said, because I've been very vocal about betting against Washington the last 2 weeks. 2 really tough matchups, really, really amazing defensive lines in the Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles. We don't have that here with the Titans. This is a really perfect spot to actually bet the Washington Commanders +2, +1.5, wherever you get it. Again, you're kind of betting the situation. You're betting the spots. The same reason I loved the Niners for Monday Night Football. You're betting the situation. People were down on the Niners. People are down on the Commanders. They're certainly up on the Titans, a team that could end up winning the AFC South. Everybody's down on Indy. Nobody knows much about Jacksonville. I think people think the Titans are a pretty good team, but the reality is this is a good matchup for the Commanders. And with Brian Robinson likely being on the active roster, I do think, to Dave's point, that is sort of a rallying cry for this team. This is a game they absolutely have to win, and it happens to be a pretty good matchup, both offensively and defensively, relative to the last 2 games. I really like the Commanders in this spot.
Yeah, and you're looking at a Titans defense that is severely banged up. Injuries everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Good call on that one. All right, next game. All 3 of you have plays on this one. So, Dave, I'll start with you, buddy. We've got the Steelers at the Bills. Bills 14-point favorite, total of 45.5. You're on a Najee Harris under, man. What do you got?
It's under 71.5 total yards, -115 at Caesars. And when I originally found the prop, it was 70.5. So we're getting an extra yard. I'll take it. I think this is a terrible setup for all the Steelers in general. Kenny Pickett making his first NFL start on the road in Buffalo, literally the league's best pass defense. I think it's going to be tough for him to find good yardage. And even if they tell him, hey, maybe you should throw it to Najee a little bit, his track record in college did not suggest him throwing to running backs. In 2021, 14% of his targets to running backs. That's low in college. And that was the highest mark in his last 3 years at Pitt. Last week, he came in. He actually looked good for most of the plays that he had. I know he had 3 interceptions. 1 was on a Hail Mary. 2 were on passes where his receivers could have caught the ball. 0% of his targets went to Najee Harris. And the Bills, top 5 in yards per catch allowed to running backs, top 5 in yards after contact per catch to running backs. I think you see where I'm going with this one. I think Najee's going to have a tough week, and he might get 60, 65 total yards. He'll get close to 71, but he won't get there. Under 71.5 total yards for Najee Harris against the Bills.
There we go. And Sia, I'm going to throw it over to you, man. You're kind of looking the same position in this game, running backs. Devin Singletary. What do you got here?
Yeah, let's go with an under. Devin Singletary under 53.5 rushing yards. First of all, he's yet to hit this total in 4 games this season. So that's the good news there. And frankly, he's been a lot more efficient in the passing game than he has been in the running game. He's got 2 games where he got into the 40-ish yards, and he's got 2 games that were complete duds. So in this particular game, yeah, he's going to be on the field a lot, but I just don't think the rushing totals are going to be there for him ultimately. And for the record, this is a 14-point spread. This game could absolutely get away from Pittsburgh. And that does leave the door open a little bit for guys like Zach Moss and James Cook to finally get some playing time. At the end of the day, Devin Singletary hasn't hit this total. He's certainly much more relied upon in the receiving game. Yes, Pittsburgh has given up a decent amount to running backs, but they have played some really good running teams like the Cleveland Browns, for example. I just don't think Devin Singletary gets to this 53.5 number.
Yeah, I think I saw a stat earlier that every single touchdown for the Bills this year is either a Josh Allen pass or a Josh Allen run. Every single one of them. It's crazy, man. Now, props, throwing it over to you. All three of you, not only all in this game, but all at the running back position, and you're on Devin Singletary as well on an over, but a different look. What do you got?
Yeah, I like Devin Singletary in the receiving game. If you've listened to me or followed me for a while, you have heard me ad nauseum talk about why I think running back receiving props are highly, highly volatile. I avoid caution with them. I try to avoid them at all costs, but actually this is one that I like quite a bit. For starters, Singletary so far, he looks to have a stranglehold on this Bills backfield. He's seen his snap percentage grow every single week. Coming off last week, he played 88% of the snaps. At the end of last season, Singletary had taken over the Bills' backfield. He had an 80% snap share in the 3 of the Bills' final 5 regular season games, and then he had an 86 and 100% snap share in the playoffs. It took a few weeks this season, but that appears to have been the case again. He's getting elite usage. He's piled up 16 targets, 13 receptions, and 125 receiving yards over the last 2 games alone. And also, opposing defenses are choosing to play a lot of too high safeties against Josh Allen and the Bills. That results in a lot of open looks underneath and forcing Josh Allen to check the ball down, which he's doing, and Singletary is a big beneficiary of that. Also, a lot of injuries for these Buffalo pass catchers. We know Jamison Crowder broke his ankle. Isaiah McKenzie looks unlikely to play as well. Those are the Bills' 2 starting slot receivers. Jake Kumaro is also looks to be inactive. So I think Singletary might be his most trusted receiver outside of obviously Stephon Diggs and maybe Gabe Davis. But yeah, Singletary, this is a great matchup on paper as well. The Steelers are aggressive. They blitz a lot. They've allowed the 10th most receiving yards to opposing running backs this season. So I expect Josh Allen to continue leaning on Singletary in the passing game when he's forced to check down, where Singletary's looked really good.
There we go. All right. Next game here. Chargers, 2.5-point favorite on the road at the Cleveland Browns. Now, props, I'm going to come to you. You're the only one that has an official play on this game. However, in the chat, we had a question, and Dave, Sia, I want you guys to think on this one after props gives his play. Let me find it. Amsour says, Nick Chubb, reception yards over 7.5 at -120. So take a second. Think on that one. Props, you got one play. Austin Eckler, over 51.5 rushing yards. Hit it, man. What you got?
I love how I caution everybody about running back receiving props, and that's the next question that comes up. Very poetic. But Austin Eckler, I'm going back to the well with Eckler. Obviously had a huge week for us last week. Instead, I'm choosing to attack his rushing yards this week. I like him over 51.5 rushing yards. Coming off the best game of the season, he had 13 carries for 60 yards on the ground. He gets another potentially really, really good matchup against the Browns. The Browns are 31st in defensive EPA against the rush, 30th in rushing DVOA. The Browns run the ball well, and they can't stop the run at all defensively. Also, this Chargers offense, they are weighted really heavily towards the pass, likely to be without Keenan Allen. Justin Herbert still playing with a rib injury. I just think the Chargers are going to have to implement a more balanced attack here, especially after Eckler looked really good running the ball last week. Also, Sony Michel and Joshua Kelly, they only combined for 10 carries for 26 yards. That's 2.6 yards per carry, and that was against the Texans. That is dismal. So I think Eckler is going to continue to get 12 to 16 rushing attempts in this game. And against this Cleveland Browns defense, that's all he's going to need. So he's going to continue to be the focal point of this Chargers offense. It's a great matchup for him. He's had at least 50 rushing yards in 13 of 16 games last year. So this is an easy number for him, despite the slow start for him this season. And it's a fantastic matchup. That's why I love Austin Eckler over 51.5 rushing yards.
There we go. I'll tell you what. I'm fascinated to see. Yeah, I'm fascinated to see Kevin Stefanski in this red zone offense. They can figure it out. Dave, go ahead. See ya. Jump in right after him.
So the first thing I was going to say is that I toyed with taking the other side of this, and I just couldn't pull the trigger on it. I didn't think that it would be wise to go with an Austin Eckler under rushing prop when the Browns are so bad against the run. You saw the Falcons scheme up against them. At one point last week, the Falcons called 14 straight run plays against them, and they scored a touchdown on the drive. And this wasn't with Cordero Patterson. It wasn't with Michael Turner or Jamal Anderson. It was with Tyler Algier and Caleb Huntley and other guys you haven't heard of. So there is something there with this Browns defense being bad against the run. Proppy nailed it when he talked about leaning on Austin Eckler a little bit more running the ball. They did it last week, worked pretty well for them. And something else, they lost their starting left tackle 2 weeks ago. He got hurt. First game without him last week. The dude who replaced him was amazing. He's like a man and a half. Sailor, I believe, is his last name. He's someone that might help make that offense a little bit stronger than initially thought after they lost Rashawn Slater to the season-ending injury. So I'm with you on this one. I wouldn't surprise me if it's close, like maybe 57 to 65 rushing yards for Eckler, but I think he gets over it. I was a little shy to take the under.
There we go. All right, see it now. You've got a brand new play on this game. Kareem Hunt.
That's right. I've got Kareem Hunt over 63.5 rushing and receiving yards. I really went back and forth on this one because I almost just took Nick Chubb over 90.5 rushing yards. I actually kind of like both plays, which I think is unusual since they are two guys that are going to be eating off each other's plate a little bit. But if you want to talk about bad rushing defenses, look no further than the Chargers, who have the worst rushing defense in the league, at least through 4 weeks. They're giving up 6.1 yards per carry. So the reason I'm going with Kareem Hunt over Nick Chubb, I do like both, but we've seen over the first 4 games that Kareem Hunt is getting somewhere around 10 to 11 rushing attempts, and he's getting somewhere, we can expect 2 to 4 targets. So with that type of role, and with the Chargers giving up so much in the rushing game, I really like Kareem Hunt to go over this total. And the reason Kareem Hunt is sort of the one I ended up leaning on rather than Nick Chubb is I don't know if we actually know who this Browns team is yet. In other words, we could see a situation where the Chargers just outclass the Cleveland Browns. I'm not necessarily expecting that. I think Cleveland will be able to establish the run. This should be a good, close back and forth game. But in the event that the Chargers really take a big lead, boom, now you have Kareem Hunt in this game for even more snaps in the passing game. So give me rushing and receiving over 63.5 yards.
You know what? I agree with the play. Like, I also agree with, I had no idea what to expect out of the Cleveland Browns team. Like, they're legit moving the ball down the field. They get to the red zone and it just stops. It reminds me a lot of Denver, to where they just go completely brain dead and change their offensive style of what's been working. And it just, I don't know, man. Like, I'm with you. Like, I don't have a good feeling on who Cleveland is. And I feel like week to week, it could be a completely different team. In regards to that. Yeah, props. What do you got?
Yeah, I really like where Sia's head's at with this regarding Hunt. I think this game, there's some of the potential outcomes here are with Cleveland trailing. Hunt is the preferred back in those sort of game scripts. He has a very versatile skill set as well. We've also seen Jacoby Brissett really lean on targeting his running backs, and Hunt is one of the best receiving running backs in the NFL. So this potentially just could be a more of a Kareem Hunt game than a Nick Chubb game. And the beauty of Kareem Hunt is that he still gets plenty of play even when the Browns are able to implement the run, and it is close and competitive. So it kind of it gives you a lot of safety and security regardless of what type of game environment kind of unfolds here. So I really like this play from Sia.
There we go. All right, next game here. Dolphins, 3.5-point favorite at the New York Jets, total of 46. Sia, you're the only one with an official play on this one. Like Elijah Moore, over 43.5 receiving yards. What do you see?
Yeah, so we know Elijah Moore was Zach Wilson's favorite target last year. And last week he caught 3 or 4 targets for 53 yards. So that would get him over this total of 43.5 receiving yards that we're seeing across most books. Here's the thing, though. It was Zach Wilson's first game back. We know we have Garrett Wilson in the mix, and that's certainly complicated things. Corey Davis gets his. Tyler Conklin gets his. But I'm expecting, it's almost like 2 weeks ago when I had the Breece Hall play and I had the Michael Carter under, I said when I hit those, fortunately, that there would be a kind of a changing of the guard. And that's exactly what we've seen. I'm not saying there's going to be a changing of the guard necessarily from Elijah Moore, to Garrett Wilson or vice versa. I just think Elijah Moore is going to be looked upon by Zach Wilson as Zach Wilson gets more and more comfortable playing these games. So Elijah Moore over 43.5 receiving yards. Oh, by the way, the Miami pass defense is pretty terrible. They're one of their two best corners is on IR, and the other corner is banged up. So they're giving up. I think their pass defense is 31st or 32nd in the league in terms of yards per game. So Elijah Moore over 43.5 receiving yards. I think he gets 4 to 5 to 6 targets. And if he catches 3 balls, I think he could absolutely get over this total.
There you go. Yeah. Props what you got, Bob.
Yeah, so I'm a big supporter of Elijah Moore. He's run more routes than any wide receiver in the NFL this year. So I think anytime you're getting him under 45 yards, just because of that sort of route participation, I feel like there's a lot of baked-in value there. And then as far as Tyler Conklin goes, Sia mentioned him. He's no longer going by Tyler Conklin. He's officially Conk Daddy going forward. So just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you.
Conk Daddy. There we go. All right, real quick before we move to that next game, looking back at the previous one, props, a question for you from Jason Kane. Took Singletary up to 20.5. Is that still good?
So there's thin margins with these running back receiving props, but as I always am cautioning you against them, I wouldn't put this out if I didn't feel like I had a significant edge on it. My projections have him like 29 yards. But I'd personally, that's right around the threshold of where I'd stay away. But yeah, I'd scale down with your units at least if you're taking it at 20.5.
That's good advice. Solid advice, sir. Well done. All right, next game here. You all three sorry. Dave, you have a pick, and Sia, you have 2 picks on this one. We got the Falcons at the Bucks. Bucks, a 10-point favorite. Man, it's gone up. It was 8.5, I swear, like 24 hours ago. Total 46.5. Dave, you go first. You got to play on Marcus Mariota here.
For the second week in a row, I've got to play on Marcus Mariota, but it's not the same type of play. This week, I'm guessing that he throws an interception, something that he's done in each of his past 3 games. Over 1/2 interception at minus 123. It's high juice, but as the coach might say, it's worth the squeeze. Figure that the Falcons are going to have to throw. They're playing Tampa Bay. The Bucs have a good run defense. The Bucs on offense can put points up. It means that Marcus Mariota is going to have to put the ball in the air. He's going to do so against a Tampa Bay defense that's had at least 1 interception in every game this year. Yeah, there's a reason why the juice is high. It's because it's likely to happen. But the juice should be 140 or 150. It's only 123. I think it's close to a lock of happening. I can't wait to bet this one. Marcus Mariota, 1/2 interceptions. Over.
Dave, I'll say this. You are speaking my language. I love quarterback interception props, and you're exactly right. I have no idea how this juice isn't 150 or above. Like, it will be. It's going to go.
Yeah, don't take it when it's that high.
Yeah.
Like I would take it up to 130, but that's it.
130? Good call. Yeah. Like, it's a solid play. That run game's going to be gone, man. All right, Sia, you've got 2 plays on this one. I'll let you rip it. First one's on Mike Evans. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the second one because I am not educated enough to do so. So the floor is yours, sir.
Well, I'll go with the second one first, just because we were talking about Marcus Mariota. It's Olamide Zaccheaus over 27.5 receiving yards. Maybe some of you haven't heard much about Olamide Zaccheaus. He's basically the second wide receiver in the Atlanta offense. Not a super dynamic receiver. He's out of UVA. He's solid. And so he's getting it's kind of sad to say he's only getting 2 targets per game over the last 3 games. Now, he's caught both of them. In the first game, he had 4 targets. He caught all 4 of those 2. The guy's literally not dropped a ball. Every target that's gone his way, he's caught it, 10 out of 10. With that said, we have Kyle Pitts out of this game. We have a negative game script for the Atlanta Falcons. They are going to lean on Drake London, of course, but Tampa Bay is really good against wide receiver 1 so far this year. So I think Olamide Zaccheaus is going to get a couple more targets by virtue of the fact that the Bucs are good against wide receiver 1s, but also the fact that Kyle Pitts is out of this game. You only have to get, it says 26.5 here. I think it has moved to 27.5, so we'll have to double check that. But 27.5, it's at minus 115. I think it's ticked up for the very reasons that I'm telling you. And I think he's going to be the second wide receiver, the second guy for targets from Marcus Mariota. So I like Olamide Zaccheaus over 27.5 receiving yards. And then the next one is Mike Evans over 56.5 receiving yards.
Whoa. So wait a minute. Before you get to that one, Steve, I got to correct you on one thing. How did you say his name?
Olamide Zaccheaus.
When you go to the zoo, some days it's Gorilla Day. Some days it's Cheetah Day. And then once a year, it's Olama Day. And that's how you say his first name.
Oh, really?
Olamide Zaccheaus. By the way, he's had at least 49 receiving yards in 3 or 4 games this year, and that's with Kyle Pitts on the field. So I love that prop. That one could go up to like 32.5, and I would still take it.
Totally agree. And
now, how do you pronounce the other guy, the prop that you're about to do? His name?
It's McKay Evans, I believe.
Thank you.
McKay Evans over 56.5 receiving yards. So he's hit this in every single game, even the game that he got kicked out of. I think Tom Brady is going to go off in this game. He's at home. You know, the Tampa just hasn't been very good. Tom Brady hasn't looked very good. This is a get-right spot for Tom Brady and all of his receivers. Yes, Godwin is probably going to get his, but we're not 100% sure that Godwin is at full strength. But it's going to be a lot of Godwin. It's going to be a lot of Mike Evans. Cam Brate is not going to be playing in this game. It looks like Cade Otton is going to take his place if you want to take a $2,500 DFS flyer on that. But weather's not going to be a factor in this game. It's going to be good. The winds are not going to be high. I think it's going to be a big game from Mike Evans, possibly a big game from Chris Godwin as well. But 56.5 receiving yards, it just seems too low. Honestly, I would have thought this would have opened 63.5.
When you see props like that, Sia, does it make you think that it's a sucker line and you shouldn't take it?
100%. It 100% makes me think that. But then, this isn't a Mike Evans narrative for me. It's a Tom Brady narrative. And so I just think that Tom Brady is going to pass the ball down the field, even when they're up 10, 14, 17 points. And I think Mike Evans is going to be the primary beneficiary of that. Frankly, 56.5 receiving yards, he could get that on 3 catches potentially.
Yeah, no doubt. Like, first off, I hope that we don't have like cameras looking to see if Brady's like wearing his ring. You know what I mean? Like, I'm good on all that. However, Tom Brady is 10-0 in his career against the Atlanta Falcons, 28 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. It always feels like the Falcons are there when something in Tom Brady's life is not going correct. The Falcons are always there for him to just beat the hell out of. So, yeah. Sorry about that, Falcons fans. Tough one this weekend. All right. Next game, the game of the week that everyone is paying attention to. And, Dave, you're the only one with a play on it. Texans, Jaguars, AFC South showdown. All right, Jaguars, a 7-point favorite. Total 43.5. You've got James Robinson over 61.5 rushing yards. Break it down, buddy.
Yeah, it's a little juicy at minus 135 from Caesars, but I think this is a big bounce back spot for James Robinson. Keep that in mind when you're setting your fantasy lineups. Last week it was a disaster for the Jaguars. It was raining. Trevor Lawrence turned the ball over 5 times, and the Eagles defense is nothing to sneeze at. Keep that in mind when you look at their matchup against Arizona. We'll talk about that one coming up. But Robinson has had at least 64 rush yards in weeks 1, 2, and 3. The Texans are allowing over 5 yards per carry to running backs this year. They've allowed great rushing averages to Saquon, Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon, Khalil Herbert, even Austin Eckler. And you think about how much the Chargers love to throw the ball. Eckler ran the ball like crazy last week. We already talked about it when we mentioned Eckler earlier in the show. So to me, this is easy. I think James Robinson's going to get enough work to pile his way past 75 yards in the game. I think he scores too. Take the over, 61.5 rushing yards on James Robinson at minus 135.
I love it. There we go, man. I'm all for it. All right. Before we get to our next game, let's take a quick break and hear from one of our partners. And we are back. All right. So, Dave and Props, you both have a play on this game. Dave, I'll start with you. Props, jump in right after him. Cowboys at the Rams. Rams 5.5-point favorite. Yeah, total of 43. Dave, you're at CeeDee Lamb over 5.5 receptions at plus money. Break it down, man.
It's plus 104 for a guy who's had 6 catches in each of his 3 games with Cooper Rush. So, I'd like to know if this does this set off your sucker bet alarms, Alex and Sia and AB? Let me know. But the Rams, they're allowing a catch rate of 74.2%. That includes 6 catches to Deebo Samuel, Marquise Brown, Drake London, Stephon Diggs. Literally everyone who's had at least 6 targets against the Rams has had at least 6 catches. Lamb has at least 8 targets in every game so far this year. I think they can't run the ball on the Rams. They're going to have to throw. It's weird that the Rams pass defense hasn't been itself, and I think the Cowboys are in prime position to take advantage. It wouldn't surprise me if Lamb only has 6 grabs, but I think he gets over 5, and that's the bet. So I'm taking it. CeeDee Lamb over 5.5 catches. Plus money, baby, 104.
There we go. Yeah, look, CeeDee Lamb, he's Cooper Rush's guy for sure. Real quick in the chat, Cheshire Cat says, is this pre-recorded? My friend, it is not. We are live, baby, right here. So anybody drop any questions that you have in the chat. All right, PropStarz, coming over to you, man. You've got Allen Robinson under 39.5 receiving yards. And I don't know if Matthew Stafford even knows he's on the team because he just throws to either Cooper Kupp or Tyler Higbee. Like, that's it. So break it down, man. What do you say?
One thing I did want to say really quickly, and we can get into this later, but I don't believe that there are actual sucker bets as far as props go, and I will elaborate on that later. But I love fading Allen Robinson. I'd love to expand on that, Dave. But yes, I love fading Allen Robinson under 39.5 receiving yards. Robinson has 7, 23, 53, and 12 yards in 4 games so far. Those are his game logs. I also expect the Cowboys, they're going to generate a lot of pressure, in my opinion, against this Rams offensive line that is banged up. We've seen how ferocious and tenacious this Cowboys, Micah Parson-led defensive line is as well. If the Cowboys are getting pressure, it's going to make it unlikely that Stafford's going to decide to start throwing it to Allen Robinson, who he just does not have any chemistry with and who's exclusively playing outside as well. We've seen all of Matthew Stafford's targets going over the middle of the field to either Cooper Kupp or to Tyler Higbee. If talk about a condensed target tree, look no further than that as well. Also, Allen Robinson has just two more targets than Ben Skoranek so far, and he's averaging 13 fewer receiving yards per game despite running a lot more routes than Ben Skoranek as well. This Dallas defense has been exceptional versus the pass, 5th in passing DVOA. They've given up the 4th fewest yards to opposing wide receivers this season. Allen Robinson looks like he's running through concrete right now. I just do not see it at all. He's an automatic fade, and in my opinion, at this number against an elite Cowboys coverage unit, until I see more out of Allen Robinson, this is an easy fade for me.
Yeah, I feel you on that. And a couple things in the chat here real quick. Cheshire Cat says, I love betting on Cooper Rush. Also, it made me think in terms of Cooper Kupp, right? Like, every week you look at his props and it's like, there's no way I'm playing Cooper Kupp at over 19 receptions at minus 160, yet he just continues to do it. And obviously some hyperbole there with those numbers, but like, it's just nuts. Like, I don't understand in the NFL, like everyone knows the ball's going to Cooper Kupp and they cannot stop this man. Like, he's just unbelievable. Now, a question, props. Yeah. And we'll get to it. Feel free to jump. Like, Jason Kane says, what are we taking Allen Robinson down to? I see him at 35.5.
Yeah, he might have moved after I submitted the pick. Unfortunately, there is like an hour or two lapse sometimes after we submit picks, so you will see some movement on some of these plays. Unfortunately, I personally play it down to about 36, 37.5. You may want to wait and see if it kind of steams back up, like as far as taking unders, because the public kind of gravitates towards them. Oftentimes, you'll see them sort of steam up towards as we get closer to kickoff. So a lot of times it pays to sort of wait if you can't get a playable number. So I'd advise playing it no lower than 36.5 and just kind of waiting to see if it comes back up. But yeah, one thing I would love everyone's take is I spend next to no time looking at spreads and sides and totals, but I do not understand how the Rams are 5.5-point favorites over any team, much less this Cowboys team that has an elite defense, one of the best defenses in the NFL. We've also seen Cooper Rush look like a very viable quarterback, certainly a great backup. And to me, it just makes no sense that the Rams would be favored 5.5 points over any team, much less, in my opinion, an above average Cowboys team. So
hey, I'll tell you this, and Dave, jump in.
Sure.
Let me say, this is going to be a home game for the Cowboys, by the way.
Yes.
Absolutely a home game for the Cowboys. Dave, go ahead.
So I would play this Allen Robinson prop down to like 17.5 yards. He's absolutely toast. Matthew Stafford doesn't look for him. This is a team that cannot wait to get Van Jefferson back after the bye. For those of you that play in fantasy, find a way to get Van Jefferson into one of your IR spots. I think he's going to matter. And Tyler Higbee, the whole existence for Tyler Higbee in fantasy right now is because Allen Robinson is playing like a grandpa in a wheelchair, and Matthew Stafford knows it. He's not throwing to him. There was another prop that I was thinking about for this game. I'm not going to make it an official prop. Just some food for thought. Matthew Stafford, under 1.5 touchdowns at minus 111. This is another game where he's going to be under siege from the Cowboys pass rush. His offensive line's terrible. One game with more than 2 touchdowns this year for Stafford. Dallas hasn't allowed more than 1 passing touchdown in a game yet this season. They've taken on Brady. They've taken on Burrow. Why didn't I make this one of my top 5? I'm wishing that I had,
I like it a lot too, Dave.
Yeah, Stafford is going to have a hard time getting 2 touchdowns.
Hey, well, I'll tell you what. About 45 minutes ago, or maybe a little bit more, Larry Hartstein played Matthew Stafford over half an interception on the Early Edge and 5 show. So he pretty much like, yeah, like you guys.
What were the odds?
correlated.
Do you remember?
Minus 125.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah.
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 I like it. All right. Last game here, gentlemen. Eagles, 5-point favorite at the Arizona Cardinals. A total of 49. Dave, you're the only one with official play, but I love you guys' thoughts anywhere on the game. If you looked at, a play, didn't quite, pull the trigger, but you liked it, feel free to jump in. But Dave, Kyler Murray over 36.5 pass attempts, minus 125. Break it down, sir.
Little bit juicy again at minus 125, but Arizona really doesn't have a choice. They can talk about trying to run the ball more, but if they do it, they're just going to fall behind. They cannot run the ball. Offensive line doesn't block well. James Conner looks like he's running maybe a step faster than Allen Robinson, but not 2 or 3 steps faster. And I think the best chance that Arizona has to stay competitive in this game is to let Kyler Murray do his thing. And he doesn't really run the ball as much as he used to. He is going to throw it, and they are more of a horizontal offense rather than a vertical offense. And so that's going to lead to more pass attempts. So he should be able to get, I don't know, let's call it 42 pass attempts. That's the number he was averaging before. That's the number that, let me look at my notes real quick. It's the number that quarterbacks were averaging against Philadelphia before last week, 42 pass attempts per game. And the reason why it's not anymore is because Trevor Lawrence turned the ball over a ton last week. Really didn't throw the ball a lot. Now quarterbacks are averaging 37 attempts. Kyler Murray has at least 45 pass attempts in 2 of 3 games. They're a home dog against the undefeated Eagles. I fully expect Arizona to be trailing in this game. That leads to more pass attempts for Kyler Murray. Look for him to have at least 40 of them against the Eagles.
Yeah, great call. And not only, to bring that number down, you speak about Trevor Lawrence, like not only the turnovers, it was also raining in a mess. Like it took all of those factors to come in to bring that number down. So excellent call on that. PropStarz. Yeah, let it rip, bud. What do you got?
Yeah, I love where Dave's head's at with this prop. I think this is a super sharp play. I think this game environment is going to be super friendly for Kyler Murray, and I do think that we're going to see a ton of volume out of him. So I think that's an excellent way to attack this. One prop I did want to mention that I like quite a bit. It's moved a lot since it's open, so I didn't have a chance to make it a play, but I really like Dallas Goedert in this matchup. His line opened at 38.5 yards. He ran a route on every single drop back last week from Jalen Hurts. I believe he played 100% of the snaps as well, which was pretty unbelievable. So he is on the field a ton, and he has the deepest A dot for any tight end that plays as much as he plays, and he's getting a healthy amount of targets as well, coupled with the fact that the Cardinals are the worst team against opposing tight ends in the NFL this season. So this is a really great matchup for Dallas Goedert, who opened very, very low. And I talk about it all the time. A healthy target share with a deep A dot is the recipe for potential spike games. And this looks like a potential spike game for Dallas Goedert, in my opinion.
There we go. Yeah, see it.
One other thing, this was going to be a play. I actually ended up subbing in Mike Evans for this play, and it was partly because the juice was kind of getting out of control. But if you can get Zach Ertz over 4.5 catches, which he's blown out of the water the last few games, in 2 of which he had 10 and 11 targets, I'm seeing it on DraftKings right now at minus 140. It might be minus 130 in places. And if that's the case, I do like Zach Ertz over 4.5 catches for a lot of the reasons Dave was just talking about with respect to the pass attempts. He is one of the, if not the most reliable target. Obviously him and Marquise Brown, and he's reliable because of where he is on the field. And I think Kyler Murray is going to be looking his way quite a bit, whether it's a negative or a neutral game script.
I love it. And I love in the chat, like right at the exact same time, Greg Fincham asked, Sia, is this an Ertz revenge game in fantasy? So there you go.
Nice.
You guys would think it's spot on.
Answer is yes.
Yes, indeed. All right, we've reached the end of the show. Let's bring up the recap here and take a look at what everyone is on. PropStarz. I'll tell you what. Let you guys let them rip. PropStarz, go ahead. What you got?
Terry McLaurin over 56.5 receiving yards. I play it up to about 59.5. I do expect this one to close around 63.5 yards. Allen Robinson under 39.5 receiving yards. I play this one down to about 36.5. I would suggest waiting on it if it has sunk lower than that. Next up, Devin Singletary over 17.5 receiving yards. I play that one up to about 19.5, 20.5 at the most. I'd scale down with your units though, because these margins for running back receiving props are very thin. Austin Eckler over 51.5 rushing yards. I'd probably play that one up to 53.5. Saquon Barkley, longest rush over 14.5 yards. I'd play that to about minus 140.
Lovely. Dave?
My favorite play is CeeDee Lamb over 5.5 catches. Seems like a lock, and we're getting odds in our favor, so I'll take that. Najee Harris under 71.5 total yards. This guy was supposed to be amazing. The offense around him, not so amazing, in a really bad spot for the Steelers, with Kenny Pickett making his first NFL start at Buffalo. Kyler Murray is going to have to throw for his life, over 36.5 pass attempts against the Philadelphia Eagles. Marcus Mariota, he's going to throw a pick against the Bucs defense that has at least one interception in every game this year. Minus 123 on that bad boy. And James Robinson, huge bounce back game, over 61.5 rushing yards. Jacksonville squishes the Texans. That one's minus 135, but it's worth it.
I love it. See you. Bring us home, buddy.
All right, we got Kareem Hunt over 63.5 rushing and receiving yards. I think the Browns are going to be able to run all over the Los Angeles Chargers. And if for some reason they get in a negative game script, you've got Kareem Hunt catching the ball in that. Elijah Moore over 43.5 receiving yards. I do think we're going to start to see a little bit of what we saw last year with Zach Wilson locking in on Elijah Moore. This is a banged up secondary with prominent people on the IR and one guy questionable but likely to play. So Devin Singletary under 53.5 rushing yards. I like that, of course. I think we're going to see a little bit more of James Cook and a little bit more of Zach Moss if this game gets out of hand. Mike Evans over 56.5 receiving yards. I could see him doing that in 3 catches. I think it'll be a big game, big day for Tom Brady. And oh no, I'm going to need Dave for this. Olamide. Darn it, I was so
Remember,
close.
it's not Parakeet Day or Lion Day. It's Olamide.
I'm not, based on that, I'm not going to remember it. Olamide Zaccheaus over 26.5 receiving yards. He's the de facto number 2 receiver with Kyle Pitts out. I expect him to get 4 to 5 targets and eclipse this 26.5 receiving yard total.
See, the funny thing to me is you nail his last name every time, but the first name you're struggling with. You'll get there. And then you will graduate on to the tight end in Denver.
Oh no.
I blame it on Sia's flu. I think he deserves a pass.
That's right.
Say that again.
Mispronunciation flu.
Yeah. You haven't heard of that? That's a thing.
I believe it.
Yeah, I would too. All right.
You need to take some alphabet soup to get over.
I love it. All right, before we get out of here, give you guys a minute to give something that you're looking forward to this weekend, or plug something.
Can we do that? I'm sorry to cut you off, AB. I want to learn from Proppy on what he was saying earlier about why he doesn't think there's such a thing as sucker bets.
Yeah.
So if we only have a few minutes left, if you don't mind, I'd like to hear that.
Yeah,
rather
your show.
than glow about our games and final thoughts. I think we could all stand to learn from that.
So when we're looking at player props in comparison to like sides and totals, just the sheer vastness of the coverage space, there's literally thousands and thousands of player props on a weekly basis that are coming out just because of that sheer surface area. The books are just inevitably dropping a ton of very inefficient lines, coupled with the fact that these bets are capped. The books know that they're giving up some value, quite a bit of value for player props, because you're not able to get down a lot of action. And what I mean by that, you can't bet. Most people aren't able to bet more than $300 or $400 on an individual prop. The books are very aware that they're very soft, meaning that the players can find an advantage or have an exploitable edge. So the books are aware that they're giving up a lot of value here with props. And because there's just so many props that are being released on a weekly basis, there's just inevitably going to be some very, very soft spots to take advantage of. And that's why people like me and other prop bettors are able to have a really high win rate that you can't have betting sides and totals, which are invariable, much sharper than props.
And that's why he's not side stars or total stars. He's prop stars.
Absolutely. And also, with that, I want to see like a live camera to where he's at like Starbucks or the grocery store or whatever, getting gas. And he's like, yeah, let me get 20 on pump 5. And, the person's like, hey, what do you think about the Cowboys this week? 85 minutes later, they're like, okay, thanks.
Yeah. that definitely happens in the fantasy world all the time.
Oh, dude, oh my God, I can only imagine. I do not want to see what your phone or email looks like Saturday night into Sunday, because my God, like even like all of your like close friends and family, I know they're hitting you up constantly.
And it's not just that, but it's people around the league who play fantasy. It's people who cover teams who play fantasy. I usually tell people don't reach out on Sundays. I'm not going to get back to you. There's two reasons for it. One, I'm really busy on Sundays, obviously. But two, that's when a lot of people who are close to football are making their fantasy decisions, and I need to be there for them because I want to stay in contact with them. So that's just my phone and that's just my inbox. My wife and I were interrupted at dinner a couple of weeks ago. One server at a different restaurant recognized who I was by my voice.
Wow.
These people, like I love them. They're passionate about fantasy. So I don't mind talking with anybody about fantasy football. It's created my livelihood. I'm happy to talk about it with anybody, but it always leads to a 10-minute conversation about their teams, and they break out their phones and they show me their rosters like they're going over baby pictures or something.
Yeah.
Here's my team.
It is.
Right now. I'm happy to do it. It's a lot of fun. Fantasy's great, but it's definitely time consuming for people who are in the business, and certainly people who do props. It's time consuming for us too. And we're going to get to a point real soon where Proppy's going to be, I don't know where he's going to be. He'll be buying something somewhere and people are going to recognize him. And it's going to be a long conversation going over every single prop on the Sportsbook app just to make sure they've got all the bases covered for a winning week. And you know what? I bet Alex will do it with a smile.
I bet he will too. And I didn't even think about that. You have seen so many cell phones from everybody. I did not even think about them pulling up their team to show you. My goodness, man. You have seen more cell phones than Steve Jobs did. Props, what were you about to say?
I was just going to say, as far as Dave's concerned, I've been listening to Dave for, I think, over 10 years. I've been a fan of Dave's and listening to his podcast. So getting to do this stream with Dave, this is our second season now doing it together, was such a treat for me. So I would have loved to have bumped into Dave prior to when I only recognized his voice. So I can imagine other people hearing Dave's voice and also recognizing.
Well, let me say, I was going to put my money that you were the busboy at that restaurant that came up to him while his wife was trying to have a meal.
No. But there is someone who once saw me on Las Olas Boulevard while with his lady friend, and I was with my wife and stopped and said hi, and we had a good conversation.
I wonder who that was.
That's right.
Now look at where he is. We're sharing this space here on the show, and he's better at props than I am. So
please. I disagree with that, but I agree.
Hey, look, I was 1-4 last week, and I was way off the mark. So, yeah, we can only be so bad.
Intelligent and self-deprecating humor. Like, what more could you ask? All right, Dave, what should we be paying attention to of your work that we could see that's already out or maybe becoming out? Yeah, what do you look forward to this weekend?
I've got a lot of fantasy content. If you're looking to make start-sit decisions, go to my cheat sheet. They're called Fantasy Football Cheat Sheet for Week 5. You can find it on CBSSports.com. You can even Google Dave Richard Cheat Sheet. There's one for PPR. There's one for non-PPR. Real easy way for you to get start-sit decisions without all the analysis baked in. It's a number system. The player that's got the higher number is the player that you should start in your fantasy team. It's real easy, and it's a lot better than tweeting me or finding me at a restaurant or looking for me under the stall in a men's room or something like that and saying, hey, who do I start between player A and player B? So go for that. And then, of course, Sunday morning, starting at 9 a.m. this week, because there's an early game in London. Don't forget about it. If you're setting your fantasy lineup, make sure it's good to go Sunday morning. Get your fantasy help, 9 a.m. Fantasy Football Today, live on CBS Sports HQ and on the free CBSSports.com app.
Wise words as always. See ya. What you got, buddy?
Yeah, speaking of fantasy football today, Mike McClure and I do fantasy football today, DFS Tuesdays and Thursdays. So if you're making DraftKings or FanDuel or Yahoo lineups, whatever it is, we do a game by game preview every Thursday. We do an early look and a recap on Tuesdays. Definitely get that into your rotation because it's really going to help you make lineups and be different. It's a lot of it is about roster construction and things of that nature. And the other thing is at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, I do a show with Coach and a few others where we go over the entire Sunday slate. So that's something that, it's kind of like last minute stuff, which actually can be kind of helpful, especially when you're talking about weather issues and things of that nature. Like, for example, Chargers, Cleveland, Bills, Pittsburgh. There might be some wind issues in that game. We go over what we like against the spread, totals, and we talk about some of the weather implications, things of that nature as well.
Yeah, an excellent show. Like, pay attention to it, obviously. You guys go over a ton there. PropStarz, look, last, certainly not least, my man. What you got, buddy?
You can catch me on pretty much every single NFL SportsLine stream. That same one that Sia was talking about, noon Eastern before Sunday kickoff. I also appear on this Friday stream. I appear on Thursday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, SportsLine streams as well. I write a weekly column that comes out Thursdays, usually ahead of kickoff. And I also do a Twitter Spaces show every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern as well.
Nice work. Well, gentlemen, I do have to say thank you so much for having me in on your show. It was fantastic. Coach will be back next week. Just had some things he had to take care of. He's selling a house in Connecticut. Get rid of that. Be done with it for sure. We said, look, man, just go handle it. It's too difficult to do 91 things at one time. Just knock it out. So he's doing that, but he will be back next week. But I thank you for allowing me to come in and talk ball with you guys. So, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be live Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern, normal time for the early edge. But until then, best of luck. It's Cashy's Tickets. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.